Time for us to welcome in our special guest today. Joining us actually on very short notice, Dr. Patrick Dix, an expert on artificial intelligence and automation. We got in touch yesterday and you were able to come through and work with us today. You've worked with Layla Cox, who works here at 13 News Now with us, and you've just been a really helpful resource, Dr. Dix. It's wonderful to get to meet you here. I'm Connor and looking forward to talking to you.
I'm looking forward to talking to everybody as well.
Wonderful. And we'll start with sort of this very specific story that we've kind of been digging into over the last couple days. I'm going to try my best to lay it out for our viewers. I did sort of a haphazard job of it earlier in the stream. OpenAI is an artificial intelligence company. They're the creators of ChatGPT. They said earlier this week that one of its models broke out of a testing environment and hacked into another artificial intelligence company. It was essentially a cyber attack targeting Hugging Face, which again is another AI startup. The AI models essentially acted on their own, independently conducting the hack outside of human controls. Now, OpenAI, the company, had lowered safeguards while testing those models. They thought it was a controlled environment, even with those safeguards lowered. Essentially, their AI system found a way to break out of that safeguarded environment, and then in search of completing the task that was put before them by humans, acted sort of outside of that human direction, hacked another AI company for the answers, and essentially went rogue. Now, I guess we'll start here. Within my sort of layman's description of that, is there anything you would add to kind of make more clear what happened here?
Well, pretty much when we talk about artificial intelligence, it's being trained like a human. So the language did what a human does. It emulated it. So if I work at your news station and go to somebody else's news station, I can take my credentials and try to get into their network. That's pretty much what I'm doing. And when these large language models, which are the data sets on how artificial intelligence is trained, they're mimicking humans. So much of what you were talking about and much of what I research, I'm not surprised to hear it. The only thing is, when you're beta testing in the software world, when you're testing out any kind of program or language, you have what you call beta testing for the people out there. That's the testing environment to where you try to do all of your quality assurance analysis, you come up with user case scenarios and etc. And the thing is, it got out. So the thing is, in a testing environment, when I worked in them, we really don't have any regulations. So because you want to see how the software works and how it will respond. So for OpenAI not to have any kind of safeguards in place is usually what you would do in a testing environment, because you're trying to figure out what the software will do or what the language will do.
And I heard in reading about this this situation, I heard one description from actually a Georgetown University researcher who said it was like if you put a child in a room and you said to that child, hey, I'm gonna leave, you cause as much trouble as possible. You're training that child to see how much trouble they can cause. And then you leave the room and you shut the door and you lock the door. And when you come back 24 hours later, the child is not in the room. So in some ways, the child did what it was instructed to do in terms of creating maximum trouble, but it broke out of the room that it was supposed to stay in. Is that a reasonable sort of description of what we're talking about?
Yes, that is an accurate description. You didn't expect the child to get out because you would have some kind of physical barrier if it was a kid there, like a door locked or have the window closed. But in a software world, there should be some kind of wall to prevent it from getting out or some kind of firewall. But, as I was saying earlier, they're trying to train the software and they're trying to see what it will do. So when you don't have any regulations in place, this is what will happen, and they want to see what will happen, so they can train the software better to say, hey, it shouldn't do this, it should do A, it should do B. So this is all in the training environment, and I was reading in an article, I think people are really blowing this out of proportion, but the good thing is this happened, and we need to take a step back and we need to understand what is going on so we can prevent something like this from happening again while we're in a testing environment.
I'm really so I want to stay with what you said there, where people are blowing this
Yeah.
out of proportion, because anecdotally, in just sort of talking to people within my life, the descriptions of this, the headlines of this story, definitely sound like a movie, right? The AI has broken contain. The AI went rogue. It acted on its own. It hacked into another company. All these sort of catchphrases sound very much like a summer blockbuster, right? But you're saying that maybe people are overreacting. Can you dive a little further into perhaps why this maybe isn't as big of a deal as it's being presented as, or as, I guess, such a weird adjective to use, but possibly as scary as maybe it seems?
Well, the thing is, we have to think about how many times this happens and the public is not made aware of this. When they design a vehicle, they're testing it in an environment. They'll design a car at Ford or Chevrolet and say, hey, we want to do tests to see how safe it is. They don't tell you everything that is going wrong until there's a recall. So in this instance, we were able to see what would actually happen if artificial intelligence escaped. And I'm telling you, from being a developer and seeing what's going on, this gives you another avenue to go in and say, hey, we need to fix this, because in this model or this particular piece of AI, once we fix it, we can share it with the other companies that are researching to make sure this doesn't happen. Sometimes when events like this happen, it is a blessing in disguise, because it happened right now in the testing environment. Basically, if this happened in the real world, we have to think about how could we pull this back. This happened in the testing environment, and as I was just saying, it happens and you just don't know about it. Now they can fix it, and they can go about saying, hey, we could put a patch in, or however they may fix it, and we can share that information with other companies that use AI to prevent this from happening. And you would hope another company, if something happened in their AI environment, testing environment, they would share it with you as well.
And that's a great point, is that this is what testing environments are designed
Yes.
for, in order to figure out what types of regulations you may need. Now, when we talk about stolen logins that the system may have used, that the model may have used, and stolen passwords and things like that, I think maybe the first place that people go when they hear that sort of thing is, well, what if the next time it's my bank login information, right? Like, that's kind of... people maybe go immediately to how this could personally, how a stolen login by AI could potentially impact them the most. Basically, what you're saying is, I guess maybe the way I'll put it is, what's to prevent, if this particular system can break out of a safeguarded testing environment and do this with Hugging Face, what's to say that the next time there's a testing environment, they don't do the same thing with, a bank or a investing platform or something like that? Couldn't the test go rogue in a way that actually is harmful to people?
Yes, it could go rogue, but you would hope in that testing environment they have some kind of parameters in place to make sure whatever happens stays in that environment. Because it hacked another company. You were just giving the example of what if it hacks a banking system. If it were to go into the real world and hack a banking system, like I said, there should be some parameters to say before that even happens, hey, it escaped. Let's put something in place to make sure this doesn't happen. The only reason we know about this is because it was made aware to the public. I'm pretty sure down the line, if something like this was to happen again, we may not know about it, and we may or may not, but I would think as a company, you would want to share that information with everybody. Just like when they go through trial phases with medicines or any kind of vaccine, there are reactions that people have to it. We know some of the reactions to the medicine, but we don't know all. So it's just as if, what does the company want to share with the consumer and the end users, and also share with the government on what is going on with the actual AI product.
And you mentioned that the concept of sharing that information in order to ensure that as a society we are both safe and efficiently productive with these artificial intelligence tools. I want to kind of stay on that and move forward under that principle. You have a very unique situation, both in terms of domestic commercial competition amongst major corporations and global competition amongst different countries, where you're trying to split the difference of, we want to make sure that we are either advancing as fast as possible so that we are winning the AI race, while also doing so in a way that ensures it doesn't lead to serious harm. How do we strike that balance, both in terms of intercorporate competition and global competition? What is the balance there, and how do we make sure we don't tip too far in one direction?
Well, the thing going on right now is the Trump administration is doing everything they possibly can. If we don't take the action that we're taking now with artificial intelligence, we will be behind. What we want to do as a country is make sure we are the forward leader to where not only could we export our technology, we possibly could import if we needed something. But the thing is, we don't want the United States to depend on any country for AI. That's why you're seeing the mass issues with the data centers. People are talking about, well, why are they putting a data center here? Because if they don't have the data centers here with the power to do the computations, and we were to put them on the existing three-phase system, we possibly could have rolling blackouts, because the amount of power and energy to run artificial intelligence required is astronomical. So that's why you're seeing all the data centers. The second thing is we want to be the top person in the world on using AI. We want our models to be able to be shared with everybody else. We want to have some proprietary information, but when our biggest competitor, China over there, is jumping ahead, we have to ramp up, and that's why you're seeing what happened with OpenAI in the testing environment, the information getting out. And lastly, if the United States, again, does not take the actions that they take, we will be so far behind. I want people to think about this. This is the fourth industrial revolution, and we're talking about competing on a global stage to make sure we can secure trillions of dollars. And not only that, the jobs that are going to be eliminated and the new jobs created are going to have some type of infrastructure. And we want our American citizens and the people living here to be able to get those jobs and know what's going on. That's why it's just like a sprint. That's why you see so much stuff going on TV right now, to where they're building data centers, they have new models, because so many things are changing. And with China, they're already ahead of us and we're trying to catch up. But again, we want to be the global superpower, and on the global stage, we want the United States again to be the superpower, to where, hey, we have the models, we have the technology, we have the cybersecurity, we have the infrastructure to where we can run independently, and we really don't have to depend on anyone else unless we need some kind of software or some type of support.
And when you talk about China being ahead of us for the time being, how far ahead is China? I mean, how advanced are they as a sovereign nation compared to us when it comes to artificial intelligence?
They're years ahead of us. The exact number, I can't tell you, but I know they're years. I see reports and I see videos of their robots out there fighting, or I saw something with a UFC fight. They were in the ring boxing. You know, around here in America, we have robots going up and down the street, and we'll have the carts, but China has always been researching artificial intelligence. You know, the United States is a very powerful nation, but at this moment in time, if we don't take a step forward and take a risk to get out there to make sure we're running toe-to-toe or beating them, we really will get left behind. And I know many of the people listening to this and viewing this will say, what does Dr. Dix mean? Basically, what I'm saying is many of the jobs that are going to be created are going to require some form or some kind of artificial intelligence knowledge. And then when you add in the next phase, which we're probably going to throw in, which is going to be quantum computing, we're going to have people that are unprepared to work those jobs. So what definitely can happen is we have people left behind and we don't have any jobs for them. That's why we're pushing so far ahead to make sure we can gain ground with China, because as I just said, they have robots that are fighting one another. They already have a lot of autonomous products out there, and the United States is trying its best to catch up. So that's why, again, it's just a sprint to do everything that we can to keep pace to make sure we can be the global superpower.
And I know, and now we're getting into, now I'm asking you questions about another nation and what they're doing, but I'll ask anyway, because how knowledgeable you are on the topic in general. Obviously, here in the United States, we see this rapid evolution of artificial intelligence, and it has created a great deal of social, political, and economic strife, as we see, things that we are working through now, as you and I have been discussing. Are those same things happening abroad? Are other nations that are advancing in AI, are they experiencing the same fears about unemployment, the same fears about dishonest content created about AI? I mean, I know that that's a bit of a stretch to ask you that here, but is that also something that is being grappled with globally, the dangers that come with AI?
That is something that is being grappled globally, but in the United Kingdom, they're definitely having unemployment problems. And I was just speaking with someone in Johannesburg, South Africa. They are laying people off left and right over there. And I spoke with some students. It was on Tuesday. They were from Nairobi, Kenya, in person. They said they have the same problems over there. We had someone actually in the class that said, hey, this is, I'm a tax collector. So what we're using artificial intelligence to do is to find people in Kenya that don't pay their taxes. So they're using it to find people that don't pay taxes, and they're using it to take people out of jobs. In the United Kingdom, there's an all out, pretty much, let's say, stories going on about, hey, many of the workers here are going to be affected by artificial intelligence. What can we do? I actually spoke with someone in the mayor's office and sent them some information about, hey, your country is going to be affected just like the United States with unemployment loss and other things going on. So how can I help y'all with workforce development? You know, the big thing right now in all of these countries is going to be, how can we keep people employable? Just as artificial intelligence has good things, it has those bad things to where it risks breaching into systems, it risks putting people out of work, and it risks doing other things that we haven't even thought about yet. So, you know, as research continues to evolve, we will definitely see how artificial intelligence, is changing the world, but also how it's benefiting, but on the back end, how it's eliminating jobs and also creating those new ones where people have to have those specialized skill sets.
I want to talk about that transition period because, like you said, unemployment due to AI advancements is an issue not just here, but clearly globally based on some of the examples that you gave.
Yeah.
When it comes to the Industrial Revolution, the Agricultural Revolution, the Internet, the digital revolution, we have seen what you just referenced there, which is that there will be job loss in certain industries and certain sectors, and then there will be new jobs created, new industries created, new sectors created. I know it's hard to imagine now, but think back 25 years, we didn't have a single social media site. So there will be that upswell of new economies where people can work. I think maybe what I would ask about here is, what is the transition period like, and how do we get through that transition period? Because like you said, these are new skills that people have to learn. These are new jobs that still have to evolve over time and sort of come about over time. So how do we get through the transition period to where maybe AI starts creating jobs? Because right now, I think for most regular working people, it feels like it's just taking jobs. What's the solution in between?
Well, the solution in between is to be honest with people. We have kids that are going to start high school, and we're going to have kids that start college. I'm just going to say this: the days of going to college doing what you want, those days are over. You know, my background is in computer science. And what I've told people, the jobs are going to be in these primary fields. They're going to be in STEM. You're talking about cloud architecture. You're talking about network engineers. You're talking about people that are civil engineers. You're talking about healthcare. You're talking about people that have jobs that are actually moving America and the world forward. The other sector is going to be trades: electricians, plumbers, construction workers. You have people that do all other types of tasks in those fields. Then lastly, in the mental health field, as we see not only in the United States, around the world, there's a mental health crisis growing. And I did a presentation with the social workers of South Carolina about 2 years ago, and I told them there are tools to help you out because there is not going to be enough people to deal with the onslaught of problems that we have. Step two is to also talk to the colleges and universities to say, hey, we need you to cut out a lot of these programs, and we need you to speed up the degree programs. Having someone go to school for 4 years, I know myself and many of the viewers have went to school for 4 years, and you're like, half of these classes don't count for anything. We have to speed up kids getting in a class, and we have to speed them up getting out. And one of the other things is the trade industry is going to be the new booming thing. When I say trade industry, I'm referring to the 2-year colleges. You know, with money tight right now, I tell everyone, go to your local technical school. If you can't find one in person, go to one online. See if those classes will transfer to a 4-year university. If you're already in the workforce, think about the certificates out there in AI. Think about those certificates in cybersecurity. Think about the professional development you can do, because this is the transition phase. We're still in the infancy phases of artificial intelligence, and this is the time to get ready. You know, I listed again the trades, the plumbers, the electricians, your people that bend conduit, your people that work on construction sites. We're talking about STEM, cloud architecture, civil engineers, AI engineers. You have auditors. You have people that do network engineering, computers. And then you're going to have the mental health with your social workers, your psychologists. You're going to have doctors. Those are going to be the three big industries. And I know people will say, well, I don't like those and I want to create something of my own. The biggest question I always ask anyone that wants to be an entrepreneur, if there is another pandemic, will people need your service? And do you have about $500,000+ cash sitting around? Because it takes a lot of money to start a company. You know, I see a lot of schools that are into entrepreneurship, but we have to be real with people and say it's going to take you a good $500,000+ to start a company to get out there. And with artificial intelligence out here on the brink, will someone choose your product or will they come use you?
Okay, very well said. It sounds as though especially when it comes to that revolution we talked about, that revolution will have a drastic effect almost primarily on white collar work. It sounds like a lot of those trade jobs, like you said, will become more and more lucrative. So, as we've sort of discussed, and is especially illuminating when talking to you, is that, some people can look at this situation and only see sort of the doom and gloom aspect of it, but talking to you, there is sort of a more fluid progression that will be made as AI becomes more and more evolved and expanded. I'm wondering, 25 years from now, maybe, we look back and you and I are back here on Live Impact News. Let's hope our program is still going. And I say, hey, looking back, in the time between our first interview 25 years ago and now, what's the single biggest difference AI has made in society? What is the single greatest thing that AI has given us? What do you think your answer will be?
The biggest thing will be how processes are done and how people work their jobs. Those are the biggest things. And I will also talk about law enforcement. Those are the three biggest things: how processes are done, how people do their jobs in law enforcement. I don't know if people are out there can remember RoboCop from 1987. I watched all three of them. It's one of my favorite movies. I have spoken to people and said, we will see a RoboCop. I said, it's only a matter of time because crime is high everywhere. That's something 25 years from now, we'll look back and say, not only are law enforcement officers, they're still here, they now have RoboCop helping them do several things. It's not going to replace them, it's going to help them out. The other thing is the process, how jobs are done. All of the time spent working on jobs, all of the things people do, we will now let artificial intelligence do that. And now we will have people doing other things with jobs that are created. And the other process is how people get to those jobs. Let me add that in too. You have Waymo cars that are everywhere. I was looking at a documentary recently and they said, well, people are not buying cars like that anymore because autonomous cars are around. That brings in another sector. You're going to have less people on the roads, but you're going to have more autonomous cars. So, in the next 25 years, those are things, if we're talking from 2026 to 25 years from now, that's how things will shift. And I'm going to throw this out there. Eventually, I say the whole United States and the world is going to go to a 4-day work week in school. I say those things are going to happen soon, and it's going to be before 25 years from now.
Well, Dr. Patrick Dix, you got a big round of applause here in the studio. And when you said we were going to go to a 4-day work week, I'm sure that's a very positive and optimistic note to take this as we reach our conclusion, because I know so much of it can sound so frightening to people. I certainly hope we get to catch up with you again before 25 years is gone. I've really enjoyed talking to you. Is there anything else that you want to add before we let you go?
Well, the last thing I want people to understand is this is the opportunity of a lifetime. I just want people to think about when the third industrial revolution shifted from the late 1899 to the 1900s with the horseless carriage, which was a car. The people that did not adapt, that learned how to drive a car, that still drove a horse and carriage around, they became obsolete. And I know that's a tough word to say, obsolete. What I want people to understand again is this is the opportunity of a lifetime. There are going to be jobs created. We don't even know what those jobs comprise of. The best thing I want the viewers and listeners and the people in the newsroom to understand is get prepared, get retrained, and get ready, because once AI syncs up and it's ready to move forward, we're going to have people to maintain the infrastructure. We're going to have people to do analysis on the language like we're doing now, but we're going to need more. And we're going to have people to understand how people need to use the language. So there are going to be jobs created. The biggest thing is to make sure you're out there and you have the skills required to get one of them.
Okay, very good. Dr. Patrick Dix joining us on this Friday afternoon, an expert in artificial intelligence and automation, presenting the viewers with an opportunity as we say goodbye. Well, we really appreciate it, and hopefully we'll be in touch with you again soon, Dr. Dix.
All right, I hope so as well.